physical or spiritual, is gender-affirming and must be verified by a doctor. If you need medical advice, please consult a
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the latest edition of the Health and Fitness Show. I'm your host today, Suliman Rafiq, and we are broadcasting live on Thursday, the 18th of August, 2022. As always, you can interact with us on WhatsApp as 07779 481822. That number again, 07779 481822. Always welcome your questions. Before we get on to today's show, really important announcement. You may have seen via WhatsApp that Malona Maqsood and his auntie have organised an event at Bury Park Masjid on Tuesday, the 23rd of August, 2022, on dementia awareness at 1:45. So please attend if you can. That will be Tuesday, the 23rd of August at Bury Park Masjid. So today's show, we're talking all about support that is available in regards to drugs and alcohol. That's correct. Support available in regards to drugs and alcohol locally here in Luton. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by not one, not two, but three guests who will be sharing their insight and experience in regards to this topic today. So without further ado, I'd like them to introduce themselves. Mark, if I could start with yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Mark Dowdall. I am the outreach team leader at Resolutions, which is the local drug and alcohol service provider in Luton.
Great. Thanks very much for your time today, Mark. And then Andrew.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Marrere. I'm an acting public health officer within the Luton Public Health team. I do have experience working in adult social care as a social worker as well. Thank you.
That's great. And James?
Hi, my name is James. I'm a recovery worker at Luton Resolutions.
Fantastic. As I say, really appreciate you guys giving up your time this evening to be with us on Inspire 105.1 FM. One of the reasons why we're talking about this topic today is because quite recently there was a new national drug and alcohol strategy announced, made quite a lot of news at the time. But Andrew, from your perspective, what does that actually mean for Luton?
Yes, Suleiman, just to say the government strategy on drug and alcohol strategy is called From Harm to Hope. It's a 10-year strategy to cut crime and save lives, which is also, part of the government leveling up agenda. And the strategy commits the whole of government and our public services, including local authorities, of course, to work together and share responsibility for creating safer, healthier, and more productive communities. I'm just trying to give some background here. This is the national agenda and strategy, and I will, make it relevant to Luton. And there is a big financial cost to drug and alcohol abuse in the country, and I think it runs into over 20 billion, if I'm not mistaken. And there's been estimates that this actually costs something like £350 for every man, woman, and child in England and Wales. So it's quite a significant cost, and that money could maybe be used for other, strategies. And almost 3,000 people lose their lives. People lose their lives through illicit drugs each year, England and Wales. And there is also an association between deprived areas as they face the most drug-driven crime and health harms. There is more than 300,000 heroin and crack addicts in England and Wales, who between them are responsible for nearly half of all burglaries, robberies, and other acquisitive crime. And people abusing drugs should be given a chance, to get the drugs, turn their lives around, get into employment, training, and generally just to improve their lives. The government wants to reverse the drug problems within the next decade, and it's through this reducing harm to individuals and communities. They want to do this through treatment and recovery from addiction, and by reducing the demand for drugs as well. the government has targets to reduce deaths by drugs, by 1,000 deaths. And also they have a phased expansion of treatment capacity with tens of thousands of new high-quality treatment centers. That's an increase of 20%. This includes over 20,000 new places for opiate and crack users, delivering 53% of opiate and crack users in treatment. The government also plans to have at least 7,500 new treatment places for people who are either rough sleeping or at immediate risk of rough sleeping. To put this into context, Luton has a population of just over 225,000 people, and they are, of course, one of the local authorities who have adopted the government strategy to deliver across England. And what Luton have done with the guidance from the strategy is to have a strong partnership that brings together all the relevant organizations. We've already introduced resolutions. They work with general practitioners as well, surgeries, homelessness charities like Signpost, community mental health teams, probation service, prison service, housing officers, and other organizations that support people that use drugs and alcohol, helping them fill out forms maybe for housing and applications, organizations like Penrose and NOAA. And yes, just, it's all about the outcomes. The government wants to deliver a safe, healthy, and more productive country by improving, prevention, treatment, and recovery models.
Great. So it sounds like there's a plan going forward, and obviously it sounds like there's significant investment, which is great. Obviously, James, from your experience, ultimately, we have these big strategies, but it comes down to individuals at the end of the day. Can you just shed some light on your experience around this issue?
Okay. So I've been in recovery for some time now, and I think, like a lot of people in addiction, it really stems from my childhood. I had a lot of disruption, a lot of interruption, a lot of confusion, and feeling of loneliness and feeling that I didn't fit in, and all this kind of stuff, which then fed into my teenage years, and that kind of confusion around who I was as a person. And from that, I kind of latched onto, the wrong types. I sought out those people to kind of give me validation, really, to kind of to be able to kind of express how I felt in a negative way, if I'm honest. And I think in those early days, we were CRI back then, so it's a completely different approach. It was really about prescribing and such. And I wasn't aware of any kind of support that was out there. There's a lot of support now with 12-step approaches and CBT and all these other groups. And it took me a long time. I think I was very fortunate that I had some good influence in my life when I was younger, some good role models in my life. And as I went into my 20s, I did manage to kind of stabilize on the medication that I was given, the OST, which is the opiate substitute therapy. And I managed to kind of reach out, and I done some volunteering. I was very fortunate to go to Russia and volunteer there for a while. And just from there on, it was just really bits and bobs. I found there was a lot of emotional kind of discomfort that I wasn't able to address. I think there's a lot of denial there for me for many, many years. And for me, I would say the biggest factor was around environment. I think the culture of addiction is such a massive part of it. And it was so difficult to kind of take myself out of that, because it was my friends, it was my family, it was where I was living, it was all the emotional part of that as well. And it was so difficult to kind of have to try and take myself out of that. And early in my recovery, I kind of literally had to isolate myself and really kind of spend a lot of time on my own, kind of reflecting on what it was I wanted from my life. And I began to embrace some of that good influence I had in my life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be through family. It could be through people we meet in the community. It could be role models in the community. It can be, education, all those kinds of things. And I think that's where the real change came for me, because I kind of began to change the music I listened to, the films I watched, all these small things had such an impact on who I was when I was younger, on that confusion and all that aggression and anger that I had as well, I think. And but I really struggled for many years with the environment. I needed to be taken out of where I was actually living, and I was stuck on this prescription for a long time as well. And I was engaging with CGL, who I think, in my experience, CGL was around kind of 2006. I think it became CGL around that time. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But I was still in a lot of denial and I was thinking, I can do this myself. I don't need to go to Keyworks. I don't need to do groups. And I was like that for like a decade, just going round and round and round. Like, I'll do okay for a couple of months and then I'll relapse or lapse or relapse. And I just went on and on like that. And even towards the end, I kind of looked at it as a tick box. I thought, well, okay, I'm going to turn up to these groups. I'm going to give these urine drug samples so that I can get the support I need, which for me at that time was a residential rehab. And so I started doing that stuff. I started doing the groups and really committed to it. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot about myself and I met some really interesting people. And I managed to achieve get the funding so that I could go into rehab. And I felt very confident when I was on rehab. I thought I'd done most of the work myself from all this reflection and overthinking, which a lot of people in addiction tend to like to do. It's just overthink everything, like Buddhist monks. We don't actually do anything. We're just overthinking it. And that's what I was like for me for quite a while, actually. And I went to rehab, and that was a whole new process. You know, the physical pain from addiction, recovery, the emotional stuff, and again, the environmental stuff. And on that occasion, I was actually placed in a really nice household next to a lake, next to a river in Hemel. And I met some really nice people, and I needed to be nurtured. I needed to be taken out of society in a sense. I needed to be nurtured for a couple of years. And that's when I came in touch with Resolutions, when I came to Luton. And it was fantastic for me. It was life-changing. It's almost like the rehab was like being like childhood in a way, and then like going into the aftercare service was almost like I was being nurtured through my teenage years, metaphorically. That's how it was, like going back to childhood because of all that suppressed kind of emotion and stuff that I hadn't worked out or gone through or experienced, because it'd all been put on hold since my addiction from the age of like 14 or so. And yeah, very fortunate to come to Luton and have a lot of aftercare, a lot of support, a lot of opportunities to volunteer, and a lot of peer-led stuff as well, where, you know, which gave me a real sense of empowerment as well in my own ability, a lot of encouragement. And so doing groups with it at the hub and getting involved at Resolutions, doing picnics and all this stuff that really inspired me, and just working alongside other people and just gaining that confidence in myself, in my abilities. And then, yeah, in recent months, I've become a recovery worker. So I've kind of reached my goal now. I didn't know what my goal was, to be honest. I mean, it was volunteering, then it was recovery champion. And I kind of just went with it for the first year or so. But now I'm a recovery worker, and I'm very grateful to the service. I'm very grateful to be in Luton, to be honest, because of the diversity and the sense of community that I find here and the opportunities that it's given me. So yeah,
it's amazing. It's really inspiring.
Thank you.
Which is ironic. We're on Inspire FM, so it's it's great to see, and credit to you. And it is, as I say, I think inspiring is the right word. And thank you for being so honest and transparent in sharing that.
But I think we are amazing. People are amazing. It's amazing what the mind can achieve, what we can achieve, the potential that we all have. I mean, I was out there committing terrible crimes and on the streets and taking drugs all day and night, all over the place. And for many years, I had one foot in this new life that I wanted, one foot in this other life, and it's that fear of the unknown, and that was so difficult to wrestle with. But when we really focus on something, we have that sense of connection in what we want as well, and being around helpful people. That's what really did it for me. And so, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. I could listen to you all day, to be honest. So it is, as I say, it is inspiring, and particularly when you do see people in that situation in the really dark days. Sometimes it feels like that your outcome is impossible. So you're living proof that it can be done. So that's fantastic. And Mark, I mean, from your experience, can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So very much my experience is, I want to say, it kind of echoes James. It's very similar in many aspects. I came from this moderately well-to-do kind of background, middle-class family. There wasn't anything untoward going on, but it was that same sense of just loss, that same sense of not feeling like you fit in, feeling like you're a round peg in a square hole, and that, I don't know where my place is in this world. The world seemed, uncomfortable. It seemed scary. It seemed hostile. I just didn't really understand that. And my solution to that hostile and uncomfortable world and that internal emotional condition was to look for external solutions. And those external solutions kind of varied from an early age. And I found comfort and ease in these things, and I could rattle the various different things that I kind of went through. And then eventually I kind of found substances at a really, really significantly early age. And it was like, that was the thing that I had arrived. This fixed me. This gave me a place. This gave me a purpose. This gave me an identity. It gave me a sense of being. And I just launched headfirst into it. I spent all of my time researching. I spent all of my time understanding, categorizing, and then setting about experimenting. And it was just in those early days. I mean, I was a teenager. I was a child. And it was just learning and trying these things out, and it was a big experiment. It was a laugh, it was a giggle, it was fun. It was these heady days. We started going to illegal raves, and that was the excitement that kind of came from that, and it all kind of turned into something different, something slightly more sinister as the time progressed on. My other friends would move away from this type of lifestyle. They moved away from the raves. They moved away from the substances, and I carried on. I carried on using these things because they were my solution. They fixed me. They filled that hole in the soul, and amongst all of that, academically, I did well at school. We were talking about it just before we came on air. I got my A levels. And I was kind of reminiscing because it's A levels there. And I progressed on and I went to university, and that was where things really took a turn for the worst. That was the first time I didn't have oversight. I didn't have parental oversight. I didn't have oversight by my other friends, and that was a place where I really isolated and kind of regressed into this addiction, and my substance use kind of exploded, and I started using other substances and getting involved in criminal activity, and it all really escalated, and then it was my third year and I got arrested by the police, and then shortly after that I had overdosed for the first time, and just all of these things kind of happened, one thing after the other, and it was really challenging. It was really, really difficult, but there was light in that situation. I found services in my local town because I'd overdosed and I was back in my hometown at that point, and I got started on opiate substitution medication, and that created the stability and the platform upon which I was able to study and to focus and to actually finish this degree, something that I was really motivated to do. I mean, people suggested, "Oh, Mark, why don't you take time out to look after yourself and to recover?" And I said, "No, I really need to finish this." And that was all part and parcel, I think, of the addiction. It was fixating on that next external thing. If I finish my degree and get a job and move away from everybody else is the problem, I'll be okay. I'll be all right. And I did graduate and I got a good grade, and I wasn't able to kind of convert that into this job, and my drug use kind of continued and it spiraled, and I was working in jobs, kind of quite low skilled jobs, and it all kind of tied and fed into this sense of less than, this sense of I'm not good enough. It fed into this sense of, see, Mark, you're not good, you're no good, and you'll never be any good. And to compensate that, I did what I always did. I looked for external solution. I carried on using the substances of choice that I used, and more terrible things happened. I overdosed another 3 more times, and these weren't near misses. I nearly died. I stopped breathing. My heart stopped. People had to intervene. They had to call an ambulance. I had to be administered with medication to reverse that, and it was extremely traumatizing for everybody else. But I was so wrapped up in this whole self-centered, malaise of being medicated and numb that I couldn't see that, and it took me for me to reach abstinence and be abstinent for a period of time before I was able to reflect and recognize that harm that I had caused, and it was shocking to me, and I carried on, and I reached this place of, hopelessness, where I believed that recovery wasn't possible. It wasn't possible to stop using, that I was going to live and die as a using addict. And that was my lot in life. And I reached this place of acceptance around it. And that is really sad. It makes me feel really sad to think about that person and where I was at that point, and thank God I had a family around me. Thank God I had people around me that cared about me, that saw the potential, that saw the hope, and then carried me through despite me not believing in myself, and they paid for a private residential rehabilitation center, and I went there for 8 weeks, and I experienced hope for the first time, happiness for the first time in my adult life, which again was very, very sad. And I came out of there and I was hopeful, but then I relapsed and I used again, and it got bad. And then I found recovery. I found groups, community-based groups of people who came together to support one another, and that was the thing that helped me in my own personal recovery. And I engaged with this situation, and I began working with somebody and did a lot of work on myself, and I participate in these groups and I contribute, and it really has fundamentally changed who I am. It's changed my perception of the world. It's changed my perception of myself. It's removed that less than feeling. I feel that I am good enough today. I can see the value in myself. I can see that other people will like me for who I am, not because of the things that I have and the things that I can provide to them. And that's what I believed when I was growing up, that people only want to be around me because I give them something. I recognize that I have intrinsic value today, and the way that resolutions and Change Where I Live and the drug and alcohol services all kind of feed into this. When I was 9 months abstinent in my recovery, I made the decision to start volunteering with them, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I studied this degree, and I had kind of expectations and fantasies of grandeur, and working in finance and working in insurance and making loads of money, and I was never really motivated for that. I was kind of more interested with the prestige and the power, and it never kind of patterned out. And then I found the drug and alcohol service. I found something that I was passionate about, something that really meant something to me, because I came from a place of absolute destitution, absolute just no hope, to a place of passion, and this is the thing that drives and motivates me, and I volunteered there and I worked really hard, and then I got a part-time role as a recovery champion with James. We were working in the service as a recovery champion, facilitating group work, key working clients, and that was a really amazing time. And then I transitioned into this full-time role as a recovery worker, which is the role James is doing at the moment, and that was April 2020, and COVID hit, and all of the inner challenges at that point, and it was really difficult, and I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, and I developed as a worker and as a human being, and most recently I've transitioned into this post as an outreach team leader in, I believe it was March this year or April, and the journey hasn't been an easy one, but it's been a very satisfying one. I have friends that care about me. I do things that I really enjoy. I'm really passionate about cooking. I'm really passionate about going out and eating. I'm really passionate about hiking and going camping, and these are all things that I didn't do when I was using substances. These are the passions that I'd lost. I'd lost all love of life, and I've got that back again. And that is my journey, and that's where I am today. And it's great.
It's fantastic. It is, as I say, equally inspiring, and and as, hopefully for people listening to this, they can take bits and pieces and maybe relate that to their own situations as well, or friends, family, neighbors, whoever that might be. I'm really conscious that we're fast approaching the advert break. You've mentioned resolutions a few times. I mean, there might be people out there, James, who've never heard of resolutions in their life. Just briefly, what do they do?
Resolutions are a drug and alcohol service in Luton under CGL. So we offer support to those in the community who have problematic drug and alcohol issues, whether that will be opiates or non-opiates or prescribed drugs as well, alcohol. For young people, we have a young person's team, and we also have the adult service, which is the main service in Victoria Street. So via the service, we offer things such as nurse assessments, alcohol nurse assessments as well, prescribing assessments, but psychosocial interventions and groups. We signpost obviously with housing and with other kind of support that's in the community, whether that's around mental health or recovery-based stuff, that we facilitate access to residential rehabilitations. We offer naloxone and other harm reduction advice, needed exchange and stuff like that as well. Bloodborne virus screening as well for hepatitis C and B and HIV. And in recent months, we've been doing picnics for those that are stable in their recovery. We offer acupuncture as well. So lots and lots of things. Name anything, and we probably offer it. So we're quite widespread at the moment.
It's amazing, and we're very fortunate in Luton to have the service. So after the break, we'll be learning lots more about what's available for people locally. So hopefully you've taken some inspiration from that, and do stay with us after the exam. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I can't hear us, can they? That was amazing, Mark.
Oh, you guys.
I love how you just rolled it out there.
Spiel.
Huh?
A short spiel. That's a short version. Try to avoid talking about drugs.
My head was all jumbled, I didn't know what to say.
What nerves? You guys are flawless.
Well, I don't know. Mark's the one with the confidence, I think.
So I go to 12-step fellowship meetings, and we do shares, which is where you tell your story some kind of verse in, rattling it kind of off in some kind of logical, concise fashion.
James, come and see this. This is our WhatsApp.
Oh, okay.
You can see someone say, look, this is when just after you finished.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah. They're saying here, guys, so this gentleman.
There is a new picture.
Yeah.
I can't really understand what he's asking there, but yeah, I think there's.
Do you know anything about Andrew or
different from
There's a gentleman here, he's messaged in, he said,
Mark talked about the injection.
I hear there is a new opiate treatment coming out in Bedfordshire. And here, hearing it's a game changer. What's going to be different from methadone?
So
You're happy to answer that?
Yeah, I would say ask Mark about that. I'd like to know as well.
Okay,
To be honest.
so-
I'd like to know more.
And then what he said afterwards, just so you're aware, he said, I'm a recovering addict and this guy sounds awesome, gives me hope. So,
Even if you touch one person,
that's what I
it's,
mean.
makes it work.
Yeah. And for him to message in.
Sorry?
For him to message in to say
Yeah,
that.
no, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so Buvidal. It's the depot version of buprenorphine.
So is this the injection for this long lasting?
Long lasting.
Right, yeah, okay,
So
yeah.
we've just had the green light that it's coming to Luton in autumn.
And it's a blocker, long lasting.
Buprenorphine, same thing.
So yeah, it's an opiate blocker then.
Opiate blocker, it's just buprenorphine, which is a long, slow release. Really, really good.
I didn't mention the criminal justice team, did I? Or the HIT team, or the outreach team, or the hospital.
Confidential voluntary service. I'm going to jump in until
Yes, that's what I should have said as well. It's confidential.
Confidential, completely confidential, fully voluntary service.
Yeah.
We can say that. We can say that, man.
I mean, I'll be talking about YPT and I can drop it in.
Yeah.
Young people team, which is completely fully confidential voluntary service, just like the adults.
Yeah.
I drop it in.
Another massive influx of clients now. New patients one day.
There is a massive influx of clients anyway.
Is there?
New referrals don't stop. They're booking. I don't know. It's just steady streams.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وضعته مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Would you like to sponsor the Azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481 810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Any health advice given, whether general, diet, physical, or by your doctor. If you need medical advice, please consult a doctor.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the Health and Fitness Show. I'm your host, Suliman Rafiq, and we are broadcasting live today on Thursday, the 18th of August, 2022. As always, you can interact with us on text or WhatsApp via the number 07779 481822. That number again, 07779 481822. Massive thank you to the listener who's already been in touch. So I'll get straight to his question. Apologies for the delay. It was just, guys, in relation to, I'll read it verbatim. I hear there is a new opiate treatment coming out in Bedfordshire and hearing it's a game changer. What's going to be different from methadone subtext and this new treatment? Mark, you happy to take that one?
Yeah, I am, Suliman. Yeah, so I believe this listener is referring to the new injectable form of buprenorphine, otherwise known as Buvidal. It is a depot type injection, so that is a slow releasing type of medication. So it's a slow release form of buprenorphine. So it will effectively act in the same way as Subutex, which is what he kind of referred to in his text message. Or we also prescribe Esprinol. So both of those are kind of oral medication, so they're taken in slightly different ways. Subutex is placed under the tongue and then it dissolves over a period of time, whereas the Esprinol is placed on top of the tongue, but the generic drug is buprenorphine. So the Buvidal is effectively the same substance, but it's just a slightly different formulation and it will be administered in a slightly different way. So like I said, it will be a depot injection, which means it is injected into a muscle and it will kind of be slowly released over a long period of time. So from what I understand, that could be anywhere from a week to a month between doses. So that can be very, very, very helpful for people who aren't potentially compliant with tablets, or people who want a bit more kind of freedom and flexibility without having to go to the pharmacy, once a week or daily, or whatever their pickup regime may be. From what I understand, it will be coming to CGL resolutions in mid-autumn, I believe. It has been trialled in a few different Change Grow Live services. The closest one is Northampton that it was trialled in, and from what I understand, the results have been quite good, and Change Grow Live as an organisation kind of nationally are looking at kind of rolling out across more services, hence the reason Luton will be getting this in November, and I am hearing some really, really positive things about it, but we will just have to see, how it's kind of going. And I am actually quite consciously aware of there are a couple of people who are under our service who are actively seeking out this type of medication, and they are driving to private clinics and paying their own money to actually access this treatment, which can be quite costly. And when it is fully under our service, they won't actually have to do that. They'll be able to access it, and it'll be it'll be completely free because we offer a completely free service. So yeah, that'll be coming on stream very, very shortly, but very, very exciting.
Yeah, no, definitely. And thank you again to the listener for the question. And we welcome any questions on the show. So the number again is 07779 481822. So before the break there, we were talking in regards to some very personal stories, some very inspiring stories. And particularly then at the end, we ran out of time. We were just talking about what the service resolution offers for Luton residents. And we're very fortunate to have resolutions available in the town. Just want to focus on more kind of specific groups. I mean, can you touch on, guys, in terms of what specific help is available if you're under 25, if you're a young person in the town?
Yeah, I'm happy to step in and answer that one. So resolutions also offer a young people's service. This is a completely confidential and voluntary service, exactly the same as the adult service. So the young person service is divided into 4 separate and distinct areas. So they provide one-to-one support and group support for those using drugs, anyone under the age of 25 or up to the age of 25. In addition to that, they also provide workshops for information and advice to increase informed decision-making around choices and training for professionals. So they kind of go into schools and they go into various different kind of providers to provide kind of drug and alcohol awareness training. In addition to that, they also provide a hidden harm service. So that's support for anyone affected by others' drug use, under the age of 18. So that could be most likely a child under the age of 18 who's being impacted by somebody else's drug use. That could be a parent, that could be a sibling, that could be anybody that they're kind of being impacted by. There's also a very similar service for adults. That's the family and carer support service. So that's for anyone over the age of 18 that's being affected by others' drug use. And I believe at the moment, approximately, we kind of have about 130 young people accessing support, kind of one-to-one support. And for the young people, they have a dedicated space. It's called the YP Hub, Young Persons Hub. It's a dedicated therapeutic space. It's a trauma-informed space, and that's to allow them to access one-to-one or group sessions, which has a psychosocial and harm reduction kind of focus. They've got a sensory chill-out space. They've got IT facilities in there. They have kitchen facilities with food and drinks available. Their garden space. It's a really, really lovely, really just calming, lovely, wonderful space. They also offer prescribing assessments with our consultant psychiatrist and other doctors in the service if that is kind of required. Also, I'm pleased to announce that the YP Sanctuary will be running from the YP Hub from September, which will allow direct access to mental health professionals and other support. And Chums will be holding a mental health support group at the YP Hub as well. And they also conduct kind of in-reach to schools and to community venues to make support as accessible as possible for those young people. And yeah, I kind of touched on the workshops and groups. So they offer kind of educational, tailored workshops to all audiences of different audience ages and needs. They previously offered workshops in assemblies, part of PSHE days, to classes, to year groups, and they can provide them in other settings such as hostels or disability groups, wherever you might find a young person who would benefit from this type of information. The sessions they run are really, really interactive. They're really, really fun. It's just to try and support, learning and development, and just to kind of increase that knowledge in the community. And another thing that they'll be introducing soon is the Substance Impact Champion program, which will be up and running next year to increase kind of teacher knowledge and confidence in discussing drugs and just creating a direct link to our service so that people can kind of access us and kind of talk to us about any concerns they have. And then there are, like I said, the other elements. So there's the hidden harm element. So that's anyone under the age of 18 affected by substance use. So they look at each case kind of contextually, looking at the age, the risk, any safeguarding issues in the home. And often there is a family, there's a team of support around the young person, including social workers, and they become part of that support, part of that team to ensure that this child has a voice, in these sorts of planning meetings, and they create a space for the child to openly talk about their experiences, looking at how the drug use or the effects of the drugs that they see is impacting on their emotional, physical, and social well-being and their sense of identity and sense of self. And they help kind of developing plans and supporting areas that are identified by the impact that they've kind of, they've identified and acknowledged. This work always includes kind of safety plans around risks that are identified in the home relating to the use of substance. And again, very, very much similar for the friends and family service. So it's one-to-one support with the family worker, the family member accessing the support. The person who's using the drugs can be a child, a parent, a brother, a partner. They don't have to be accessing the main service for support with their drug and alcohol needs. So anyone can come in and access this, like I said, fully confidential service. It's completely voluntary. They can conduct outreach, or they can have use of the YP Hub, and there will be groups kind of starting up next month. So that is really, really exciting. And like I said, there are just so many different areas that the young person service covers, and it is just there to, like I said, kind of support the community and ensure that people have that holistic support.
Great. And obviously, we are quite a young town, so it's great to hear that service is available for those young people. You hear a lot about young people today. Obviously, it's A-levels day, isn't it? So as you've explained really well, very, very comprehensive service. Thank you, listeners, for your messages. You're getting lots of love, guys, from the listeners. So clearly, what you're doing is resonating with people. So that's fantastic to hear. Thank you. Please do keep those messages coming as well. Can I touch a little bit on, obviously, we've spoken a lot about directly the impact for that person who might be in that situation, but obviously it has a wider impact. It has an impact on the person's friends, family, and carers, for example. I mean, what advice or support, what is, your thoughts on what's available for those people that aren't necessarily taking drugs, but are being impacted by that person?
I mean, I'm happy to step in again. I mean, again, there's, like I said, the family, friends, and carer service that's offered by Resolutions, but just to kind of provide some, concrete, support right now. The thing that I would most likely suggest to somebody that's kind of going through this, maybe they're supporting a partner, a friend, a child, a brother. It could be anybody. Look after yourself. Look after yourself first. That is the thing that people struggle with the most. I think they want to try and fix the other person. They want to try and help the other person. And what I really want to echo and what I really want to say is that person will only accept help when they're ready to accept help. And you just need to focus on looking after yourself and then being boundaried with them and saying, I am here to support you, but I'm not just going to give you money. I'm not just going to allow you to continue to take advantage of this situation, whatever the situation may be. And, and I suppose it's recognizing that as well, which can be really challenging, and it's difficult. It's difficult to look after yourself when you're watching a loved one destroying themselves. And effectively that is what they are doing. And I think it is really brave to just say, what, I can't do this anymore. I need to focus on me. And there is support out there for these people if they want to access that support, and they will access it when they're ready.
Yeah, no, that's a really powerful message, definitely. And Andrew, obviously your past experience before you joined us in public health was in social work. I mean, can you give us some examples of things that have happened?
Yes, exactly as Mark has been saying, sometimes it all becomes too much for a family member. Sometimes, when somebody is trying to get support, there is a lot of travel involved. It's just about getting that support. Is there any benefits that the person can access, to do things like that? But more importantly, as Mark has just alluded to, it's about yourself first before you support somebody else. There is a lot of support within the community, with form filling. People like Penrose out there, Noah, they do support carers, as well as clients. So there is a lot of support out there. People shouldn't just sit at home and think, no, it's just my problem. The support is out there. You speak out, and especially if you speak to social services, whom if I can just say as well, we have new initiatives. We have an app called MEC, which is Making Every Contact Count, which we are promoting, within social service, so that the social workers can just introduce these to clients and family, so people can actually like self-refer. There's a lot of resources on that, and that's very useful. If I can also mention that we in near future, as public health, we're trying to promote a kind of helpline for drug and alcohol, to complement the service that Resolutions already provide, that will be coming in the next few weeks. So people can look out for that. We're going to start advertising and marketing that. But yeah, just to reinforce that, if you're supporting somebody, it's not just your problem. There is a lot of support out there, and you just speak out.
Great, thank you.
Can I just add as well about Smart Recovery, because they've got a fantastic family and friends service.
Okay.
And they've got groups all over the country, all over international, actually, all over the world, and they can be accessed online. There may be some face-to-face meetings as well close by, but they're really good as well. And they actually it's almost like it's the same kind of processes that people in addiction go through. It's about having those boundaries, as Mark said, and looking after your well-being, and just how to using tools to manage that kind of difficulty with their family or friends. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
That's really useful.
What are they called again?
Smart Recovery.
Smart Recovery.
And it's family and friends service. Really useful.
That sounds really good. And then obviously both of you guys, you touched on in terms of how kind of volunteering helped you, and then what that meant for your careers. What if any volunteering opportunities are there at Resolutions?
So with regards to the volunteering kind of opportunities at Resolutions, we really feel that volunteers are a crucial part of the service. We really value them. I think we are kind of living embodiment of that. We came through the voluntary route, and then we progressed on to part-time and then full-time work. And they are resolutions as a whole, are still very interested in supporting the development and the growth and supporting volunteers to achieve their goals kind of moving forward. Whether that's a paid role within the service or a paid role in another organisation or transition into education or whatever it may be, we are there to kind of support that. I mean, at the moment, there is a bit of a pause with regards to the volunteering because we are just kind of recruiting a new BRIC coordinator who will be heading up our new volunteer and peer mentor program. But very shortly, we will be holding a big recruitment drive. The vacancies will be advertised on the website, which is www.changegrowlive.org. And if you kind of scroll down, you should see a careers and volunteering kind of section on that website.
Great, thank you. Just had another question in from a listener. Is James, how would one contact CGL if they need to get a referral for the addiction problem they may have?
I'd say, I mean, if you're in the area, just come in, just pop in, and we can do a referral form together there with a member of staff. Otherwise, perhaps you can go online as well, which is, as Mark said, changegrowlive.org /resolutions/drive. I mean, you probably won't remember all that, but maybe just go into the search engine and refer online. Also, you can call our free number, which is 0800 054 6603. We could do the referral over the phone as well.
That's great. So if they did want to come, where are you guys again?
We're number 2 to number 12 Victoria Street, and that's in Luton, LU1 2UA. And if you want a quick, just sort of memory, remind yourself, it is opposite Ballantyne's Gym, opposite the massive NPC car park, just near the town centre. And the address again is number 2 to number 12 Victoria Street.
Great. So yeah, for that listener, I think if you search Change Grow Live Resolutions Luton, you get all that information online as well. And as the guy said, and it's a great thing that you're able to offer, because not many people do. They offer coming in, nothing quite like the human touch. And also, the website and the phone number as well. So lots of ways of being able to refer. And you can refer yourself, or do you need a health professional to refer?
Yeah, you can refer yourself, can't you?
Yeah, fantastic. So you can self-refer, which is really great. Guys, we are running out of time. We've only got about 8 and a bit minutes left. I mean, the other thing, just while I had you guys in, I wanted to talk about was rough sleeping. You seem to see a lot of it in the town. Andrew, what's being done about rough sleeping in Luton?
Yes, Suliman. So the council has a homeless prevention strategy, and they aim to deliver effective intervention and prevention with a focus on education, employment, health, and well-being. There is through a rough sleepers initiative actually, and the whole idea is to prevent homelessness through delivery of rapid and effective assessments. So as I was saying earlier, if there is any concerns about anybody being homeless, there is a housing team where people can refer, and they are based at the town hall. The council also aims to manage the demand of homes by ensuring that they address expectations and make the best use of the social housing stock. I have to point out that there is sometimes within the client base, unreasonable expectations that there is housing out there. If somebody knows maybe somebody who's been housed, they think they can just go in and get accommodation that easily. That is a myth. There is a shortage of housing. It's true to say that the demand outstrips the supply. But yeah, if I can just give a few facts here, the homelessness figure in Luton is nearly 15 people for every 1,000 been assessed as homeless. Now, if you compare that against the national figure, which is 6.3, you will see that we almost more than double the national average. And Luton, the council aims to halve the number of individuals rough sleeping, and the aim is to end rough sleeping completely by the year 2027. And how do the council hope to do this? By preventing homelessness and providing pathways into appropriate housing and support for people who are homeless and at risk of homelessness. So they do try to be proactive, before somebody becomes homeless. There is pathways. You can make phone calls to the council. They can do assessments even over the phone. if you call the housing teams. There is the council also aims to reduce time people spend in temporary accommodation, because as you know, temporary accommodation is still classed as homeless, and they do this by trying to improve the processing time as well for homelessness applications, supporting people to move into independent accommodation. The housing strategy is an essential part of Luton Council's inclusive growth strategy.
Great. So there's work underway, but I guess from a day-to-day perspective, you go around and you see someone rush sleeping, etc. It's quite an emotional thing. I was with my son the other day, and he said it was the first time he'd actually kind of noticed that there's someone there. And he's little, and he was like, and he wanted to give him some money, for example. That was his fault as a small child, immediate thing to do. But I mean, for people who are rush sleeping, Mark, what's the role of resolutions? Are you supporting those kind of people?
Oh yeah, so definitely in resolutions, that is one of the things that we're commissioned to do, and that we do. We have a dedicated outreach team, which is currently comprised of 3 outreach navigators. There are vacancies for 2 more roles if anyone is interested. They hold a small caseload of clients which have been specifically identified by Luton Borough Council as being extremely complex, with physical health and mental health needs, a long history of entrenched rough sleeping. They experience multiple exclusion homelessness, and so most likely these are the people that you're seeing, that people are seeing. We are specifically commissioned to assertively engage and support these people. But what I really want to echo is that this work takes time. It's very slow. This cohort of individuals, they don't trust services, they don't trust professionals. They don't trust us because they've been let down periodically throughout their life and experienced so much trauma and so much pain, and people have promised them things that haven't been delivered. And we need to slowly build that trust by being consistent, by doing what we say we're going to do, never giving up, always believing them, and continuing to try. And over time, we build that trust up. And once that trust is built, amazing results can be achieved. And the beautiful thing about the way that we're commissioned is we have the flexibility to meet them where they are. I mean, I'm speaking metaphorically as literally, we can conduct street outreach, we can do home visits, we can support them to attend appointments, we can facilitate whatever support they require. And if they don't really want to change their drug use, we can provide them with whatever it is they are motivated to receive support with. Our remit is to go above and beyond to help these people into a more stable lifestyle. This work isn't done in isolation, though. We work very closely with multiple different services in Luton. I mean, kind of referring to what Andrew just said, we form part of the wider partnership, the Rough Sleeping Partnership in Luton.
Yeah. So there's lots of partners, and they're all trying to get together and help, which is great. And so that's reassuring to hear, because as I say, it is quite emotive, particularly with winter coming. And the bad weather, etc. Just it's nice to hear that you guys are all working together to try and get some outcomes for those individuals. Guys, I haven't done a very good job because we're running out of time and we had more questions. But what I would like to do actually, before we go to any more questions, is just if you could each just take 30 seconds really, just to kind of give us, a key message for listeners out there, positive message. So maybe James, if I can start with you.
Okay. Yeah, all I would say really is, there is a lot of addiction in Luton. There's a lot of homelessness as well, but there's also a lot of, and that's a bigger question, I think, more than anything. But there's also a lot of recovery in Luton, a lot of opportunities, and a lot of connection if you want it. And I would say, for me, trusting in yourself and coming to resolutions, there will be a safe and confidential space for you to have a chat with one of our members of staff, and we won't judge you. We'll talk to you. We'll not be your friend, but we understand, we can empathise, and we can point you in the right direction, and just leave it like that really, and keep the faith. I'd say definitely. Trust in yourself.
Definitely, that's great. And Andrew?
Yes, just to say, the support is out there. People need to engage. People need to ask questions. Family and carers can help in this regard. And the outcome, as you say, is everybody wants every citizen to be safe, healthy, more productive, through prevention, treatment, and recovery models.
That's great. Thank you. And then Mark?
Thank you so much. Yeah, my final takeaway message for all of the listeners tonight is drug and alcohol addiction and homelessness is an extremely divisive issue. It's a very divisive issue which people have extremely strong opinions on. But the thing that I really want to remind everybody of is that people don't wake up one day and decide to become an alcoholic. They don't wake up one day and decide to become a drug addict. They don't wake up one day and decide to become homeless. These are people that had dreams and they had hopes, and they've often experienced extremely awful life events which have led them down a path where substances are the only way that they cope with their trauma. We all need to be a bit more compassionate and kinder and remember that these are people who are suffering.
Fantastic. Now that's perfect, guys. I don't think there is any more questions. I think we should wrap it up there because you couldn't find a better ending to the show. So, listeners, just finally, just to thank you for your questions and your comments and your feedback. We really appreciate it. We welcome any thoughts on future topics that you'd like to hear more about. We're very happy to find guests for any issues, any topics that we have. We're continuing to run throughout the year with Fahad and Dr. Amna as well, so we all welcome that. And nothing left to say apart from Assalamu alaikum and take very good care. We will be back on the Health and Fitness Show next Thursday.